A Tall and Small Collection, Season 2, Chapter 21. Afraid to Catch Feels. Music was playing on the kitchen counter. It was twilight. The sun was descending over the horizon, and the sunset was an ombre of blues and amaranth and gold. Not a cloud was in the sky. A light danced against the windows from neighboring buildings, creating a light show in the living room. Ashlyn was standing at the kitchen sink. Her hips swayed back and forth to the music, a sassy tune with a beat that was present but not heavy. The words were there, but it was hard to make them out. Her hum harmonized with the tune, but she was off from time to time, sounding dissonant. Not that it mattered. Soren watched Ashlyn sway from side to side. He leaned against the counter, but looked down after a moment to realize that he wasn't leaning against the backsplash. He was leaning against the actual counter. He wasn't his proud 4.5 inches. He was tall, just barely taller than Ashlyn. She was wearing her pink polka dot shorts and a sweet little black t-shirt with a few holes here and there on the sleeves. Soren, on the other hand, was wearing his normal attire, but it looked nicer and not so patchwork, with brown pants and forest green shirt. For whatever reason, this didn't feel odd or out of place. It was just like this was how things were always meant to be between them. The song changed to one they both knew, but couldn't name it if they had bet on it. Ashlyn continued bopping to the music as she glanced over her shoulder and admired the view. She smiled and winked, knowing it would make him blush, and it did. Soren watched, arms folded, and admired the life she chose to live. What a good life they had together. Soren thought about the trials they had been through. Ashlyn remembered the fear and heartache. They remembered the nights of movies and music, roughhousing and teasing. They had their family, and that was all they really needed. Suddenly overcome with emotion, Soren stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Ashlyn's waist and leaned back, pulling her with him. It was a subtle tug, but it was enough to get her attention. She smiled tenderly and leaned back into him while they continued to sway to the music. Ashlyn turned her head to the side, admiring the way his hair fell by his hazel eyes, which she found so much reassurance in. Such dedication, such love. Ashlyn pressed her forehead against his cheek, dangerously close to his lips. Ashlyn knew what she was doing, and Soren knew it too. He leaned forward just as she pulled away, teasing him. "Gotta try harder than that," she smiled. "Oh, that's how it's going to be?" asked Soren, pulling her away from the sink, pressing his hands against her hips in hopes to spin her to face him. Ashlyn was too fast. She stepped to the side and spun into him instead, keeping her back to him to block him out. She giggled as a shiver ran up her spine from the warmth of his touch. She looked into his hazel eyes, those liquid gold orbs of his that gave her so much happiness and joy. At the same time, he lost himself in her blue-gray eyes that looked like a distant storm that would just barely pass by. Skin charged like a million fireworks were surging in his body. Something had to give. How much more could they take? How could he not know? How long had she felt this way? The moment, the life between them, felt so fragile, like a glass orb that could shatter with the smallest movement. Still, it couldn't be helped. She turned round and leaned into him, pressing her front against his. His fingertips traced the edges of her arms. Their lips met, fitting perfectly, as though one was made for the other. It was like finding that piece of yourself that you didn't know was missing. They pulled away after countless moments of being entwined in one another's arms. "Don't leave," whispered Soren. "Never again," breathed Ashlyn. He leaned forward just as she did to kiss again, and then it was gone. Soren woke in his bed with a jolt that he wasn't expecting. He was sleeping on his side, reaching for something. Someone he could never have. The feel of Ashlyn's lips against his was still in the forefront of his mind. The warmth of her touch lingered on his arms as if it actually happened. Why? Why her? After hanging out with Bay, Soren thought these thoughts, those feelings, would have changed. They hadn't. Why was it that when Ashlyn smiled, the day's troubles melted away? Why were her stormy eyes the things that reassured him? Why was it her courage and strength that kept him going? It was the desire to see her that helped him keep going after everything that happened. Was it fate that brought them together again? Was it chance? What would Ashlyn say if she knew he was having these thoughts? She seemed friendlier recently, and they had some moments of connection that seemed unreal. Was she feeling the same way? How could she? She was human. How would they go about being together? And if he said something, it couldn't be taken back. Were these feelings real? He thought so. Or was he just grateful to her? Did he feel indebted to her? The answer was yes. But was that connected to his feelings? He didn't know. There was something else that he didn't know. He wasn't the only one who dreamed. In the room just below him, Ashlyn woke with a start. The dream felt so real. She was dancing with Soren in the kitchen. His kitchen. His clothes were the same, but hers were different. She was dressed like him, a borrower. Patchwork shirt and skirt with a button on the side that was as big as her forearm. His touch was so warm. His kiss was so tender. Ashlyn felt tears roll down the sides of her eyes. Could she go on like this? Having him so near, never saying what she really wanted? For now, she needed to get ready for work, but stayed in bed for just a moment longer to savor the memory of Soren's kiss.